It's my mom's birthday, just for the record. 82 wonderful years. What a blessing. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We're going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we're going to remain standing as we hear words of inspiration from Pastor Wade Mitchell from Grace Apostolic Church.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pastor Mitchell.
Yes, hello. We had our staff meeting this morning, and we talked about the city of Clawson a little bit and just how we're glad to be part of this community. So thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, council members, for allowing us to be part of this, these meetings and these parts. So we're just very glad to be here. So if we could, and another thing we do at our church is pray. So that's what we're going to do. So let's pray. Lord Jesus, we're so very thankful, God, for your many blessings. God, so very thankful for this community of people. God, I'm so very thankful for this council members, Lord, and this mayor. God, help us, Lord, in all that we do tonight, God, that we do it to the benefit of the city and the constituents of this city. Lord, bless us and help us, Lord, in all that we do. God, we'll give you thanks and praise for all things. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you so much. And thanks for all you do for our community. We appreciate you. Well, please, Michelle.
Councilmember Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Binkowski.
Here.
Mayor Milan.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffitt. Councilmember Shepherd.
Here.
Thank you. Would someone like to approve our agenda?
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski.
Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffitt. Yes. Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes.
Thank you. We have approved our agenda, and we'll move on to item number 6, which is public comment for items on the agenda. If you're here this evening and would like to speak to any of the topics that we have on the agenda this evening, we welcome you to come to the podium. We'll allot you 3 minutes, and we ask that you state your name and address.
Here we go again. Madam Mayor, council members, and Mr. Riker. I would like to start my comments by thanking each and every one of you for taking the time to listen to us as residents and actually considering and discussing what we had proposed. Thank you for all your responses to our emails and for taking the time to have a phone conversation, a meeting regarding what we had been pushing for. Even though things didn't go our way that we had hoped, at least we felt heard and not disrespected. For that, I'm really appreciative. I would especially like to thank Mayor Milan for asking council to suspend the rules in order to have a discussion. That was such a game changer, in my opinion. It let us know your thoughts on a subject that we cared deeply about, and it let us have an open conversation. I hope you will continue that process as often as possible. It really does make a difference in how one feels about our city. I know it made for a long meeting, but it felt like progress and like the council actually cared about what we had to say, and that's really important to us. I want to add that we are sad and disillusioned regarding the loss of all of the Shawm and Baker green space. And it was obvious that the school had never intended to take any proposal from the city. So the collaborative agreement between the school and the city doesn't seem to matter. Their plan to continue and to change our community footprint is already underway. I hope, and I have always supported the school district and will continue to do so and hope for their success. But whether they succeed or not, we as a community have lost that land forever, land that we supported and paid taxes on for generations, and that's nothing to celebrate. I know there are residents in the city that say we should have been better informed, but the truth is what we did is just what we always do. We supported the school district. End of story. I hope that you've had a chance by now to see the plans for the housing, as it includes alleyways, and I'm wondering why we would allow alleys in Clawson, which is just more cement in another area for the city to maintain. My yard backs up to my neighbors and not to an alley. I say no to alleys. I also hope that the plan is to maintain the large lot ordinance passed by the city. The plan right now is for 43 houses just on Shawm. I am also hoping that the council could consider maybe imposing a fee to any construction company that is using our roads for this project, as Bywood, parts of Southbridge, Elmwood, and Phillips have new roads. And that was brought up by another resident, that all that heavy equipment will wreak havoc on our roads. So before we are asked to pay any more in taxes, I would hope that you would make sure that any company that is tearing up our new roads may pay their fair share. In closing, I'm sure you're going to miss us, since we have been here at every meeting now for months and months. But rest assured, we will still be watching you. So don't do anything I wouldn't do, or I'll be back. That's all, folks, really. Thank you again for listening and for your consideration. It really means a lot.
Thank you. And of course, you're welcome anytime. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
And my name is Ron McCauley, 1008 West Selfridge. The question I got, there's an item on the agenda for a presentation of Psalm School. Can we talk that in the open forum later after we hear that report? Because I don't know what they're going to say, so how can I rebuttal it?
Yeah, I don't know that there's going to be anything to rebut. It's basically just going to be a wrap-up of the conversations that have already been held. But we can address that when we get to that part of the meeting, and if the board will agree to have open dialogue at that point, we can entertain it.
Okay, I go along with what Linda said. I went to the board meeting last week, and I was really astounded how they were pushing ahead, even without thinking about what's going to happen to Shawm. They had already made up their mind. There was no debating it. They had land plots already. They showed alleyways. I don't know if that's the final one or not, but it showed alleyways. I got concerned about alleys in Clawson. We only have alleys behind businesses, not in residential districts. And how do you get a fire truck down that road? Or how do you get an ambulance back to that garage area when you only tell them that the address on the front of the house, that's where the ambulance goes? Then they got to come around and go. So you're going to put addresses on the back of the garages so the ambulance can figure out where they got to go? How are they going to do that? Who's going to maintain the snow removal? They push the snow through the alley up against the garage doors for the houses that are there? That's not going to work out. Would you want to have your wife and 2 kids coming home about 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night, pulling the driveway off an alley, and then got to walk up to the house? You don't want to do that. We don't do it in Clawson. All right, we go in the front anyway. So, and then I did go look at the place over off of Normandy, where they told me to go to see alleys. Those aren't alleys. Those are townhouses with 3 garage doors here, 3 garage doors here, and a road in between. And I went all through that thing. It didn't make any sense when I saw it either. So I wasn't impressed with that alley system, and I know I'm not going to be impressed with one here in Clawson. And the other thing was, we had some board members from prior school board members. They came to the meeting. They presented what they thought was the right thing to do. But they're the same group that misused the money that maintained Shawm and other things in Clawson. And everybody's complaining about, well, the old school board didn't take care. Well, now they're getting blamed for what they didn't do in the first place. And that's all I have to say right now. And hopefully I can talk when the presentation is made. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCauley. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to anything on our agenda?
Good
Good evening. I'm Dr. Jessica Back, 295 Broadacre. I've been a Clawson resident for 17 years and served on the Clawson School Board for 9 years. I've been watching the recent City Council meetings and have listened to the public comment and discussion that have been taking place, particularly related to the Shawn property. I'm here today to counteract the vocal efforts of a handful of community members who have commented on these plans during public forum. I absolutely support their right to speak to you and share their concerns. However, I want to be concerned that they do not represent me, nor, I believe, the majority of Clawson voters. After watching these meetings, it's become patently clear to me that this board has no idea what your job is or how to do it. It is not your job to editorialize about the legal work of another governmental entity. If you want to talk to your neighbor about whether you think the school board has made a big gamble or you think they could have done a better job educating the community about specific bonds, you're welcome to do that over your backyard fence. But when you are on that dais, you represent this community and you respect the work of our elected officials, whether or not you personally agree with them. To be clear, it's the responsibility of voters to be informed about the candidates and proposals on the ballot. It's also not your job to circumvent the will of the people. The question of right-sizing the district was put to the voters in 2 separate bond proposals in 2021 and 2023. The voters supported these bonds by 75.96% and 57.48% majorities respectively. This was the will of the people of Clawson. Whether or not you personally agree with this outcome, it is your duty to respect it and support it. I didn't vote for many of you, but I still have to accept your position on this board. It is your job to be good fiduciaries of our taxpayer funds, directing the city manager to waste 2 weeks putting together a proposal without clear direction for plans that have absolutely no chance of coming to fruition, to be presented at a meeting after the deadline given to you at the joint school board city council meeting is a waste of city resources. The fact that you have dedicated a significant amount of time during these meetings, even discussing the possibility of spending the equivalent of 10% of your annual operating budget to purchase the Shawn property for nostalgia, or to provide extra parking to city events, or in the delusional hope that you would spend tens of millions of dollars to turn it into a community center, while simultaneously ignoring the annual tax revenue that would come from new development in that space, is beyond infuriating. It is fiscally irresponsible and the exact opposite of your job. Furthermore, just because you personally haven't been involved in discussions with the school board does not mean the city or its designees have been left out. The discussion of right-sizing the school district began 5 years ago in 2018-19, while I was still on the school board. Before any plans were presented to the community, city representatives were escorted through every single building, and several options were discussed related to building swaps or coordinated bond proposals. The city wasn't interested in any of those. It's not the school district's fault that this city has gone through multiple city managers and council members and has generally been in a state of complete and utter chaos over the last 5 years. It is evident to me that this board needs training on how to do your job. You should follow the example of the Clawson School Board and make counselor education one of your board priorities. Clawson is a full member of the Michigan Municipal League, which entitles you to free training on how to be a council member. They also offer on-site, in-person training for a nominal fee. I would much rather this council spend $1,800 of my tax money to receive a 3-hour training than pay for another severance package or lawsuit settlement. This is what a good fiduciary looks like. Do better.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Hello, it's Nate. I just honestly, before I heard all of that, and read scripture wherever you are, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you as well, because the things I was grateful for coming into this meeting was absolutely what was said earlier. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing public comment to be exactly that, a check and balance to what is going on in the government, for us to have a voice, and even if it's not the unilateral voice, even if it's not the ultimate be-all voice, that all of the things that are taking place in the administration behind the scenes to do what they think is right it's somewhat related to what the people living here and paying taxes here think is right. And I don't have any demand that those be the same. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to have this moment to speak. Thank you, Michelle, for City Clerk Michelle, thank you very much for taking such good meeting minutes. I can tell there's an increase in the level of detail there, so that there is some accountability to what is said and done in these meetings. We can't all be at these meetings. We can't all spend hours watching them on YouTube. So to quickly get them in the minutes is very much appreciated. So thank you. Thank all of you for serving. I personally did not hear you guys take a strong political statement for or against the school board's decisions. They were theirs and theirs alone. But I did make note last meeting that it was a deliberate effort of the former mayor to establish these collaborations between the school board and the city, and that was odd. That was a new development that was, I don't know. There's a lot of people in this room currently that are not happy with how things have gone, and that is what it is. So it's clearly in the favor of some people on the school board. I do ask again to the city administration and the city council that's holding them accountable, please double check the math on the engineering plans of these developments. It is very unusual for us as residents to see these kinds of developments in property go right around the planning commission. Normally they organically go through that process, but lately it's been 10-year tax abatements well in advance of any public reveal of that, negotiated completely. And we think we know exactly what's best for Clawson. We're going to develop all the plans, ordinances, zoning, all of that is secondary to what the decision and the momentum that is developed outside of these meetings. So in the case of Sham, yeah, it's a done deal, it would seem. So please just make sure from an engineering perspective that that plot of land, which sits higher than other neighborhood surrounding homes, that all of the development that is surprisingly going to put so many houses purportedly on that plot really is double-checked, not only by our own DPW and engineering resources, but perhaps even a second source of eyes to double-check that, because it won't be the Planning Commission that gets to hold them accountable, we think. It will be only you that says we have to have a higher standard of making sure that that's safe and won't have negative consequences for the residents before those plans are put into irreversible motion. Again, thank you for all that you do and serve. I know it's hard, so thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, and we'll close public comment. Thank you for those who took the time to speak. And we'll move on to item number 7, proclamations and presentations. We have an introduction of our new Director of Recreation and Senior Services, Mr. Scott Jennings. Mr. Raker?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As most of you know, and the public now knows, Gina Boyd is making a career change, and we were fortunate enough to have Mr. Jennings available, recently retired from the city of Berkeley after a long distinguished career there, and quickly staff had interviewed him, and we collectively decided he was a good fit, and he willingly accepted to step into the role of Parks and Rec Director and Director of Senior Services.
Wonderful.
You want to come up, Scott, and introduce yourself and tell a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Scott Jennings. I was born in Beaumont and grew up mostly on the west side of the state. Found my way into recreation about 30 years ago. Did it part-time and then full-time, and then I retired. And 44 minutes after I was officially retired, I got a phone call returning. I had reached out because I heard there was an opening. I am so excited to be in Clawson. I really like this staff and the administration and everybody that I've met. Hi, I'm Scott. And I'm just really looking forward as I learn my way into the department and the city to come alongside everything that's already happening here and see what additional things that we can do and how we can make things maybe even better. So I'm glad to be here and appreciate the opportunity. And I don't usually speak at city council meetings in the past, but I'm glad to be here.
We're glad you're here as well. Thank you. Anyone have any comments or questions for him? No? Okay, you can be seated again. Thank you. We're moving on to item number 8, which is consideration of approving the following consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Item A, minutes of the regular city council meeting held on Tuesday, February 20th, 2024. Item B, minutes of the city council workshop held on Tuesday, February 27th, 2024. And item C, a list of the bills in the amount of $557,932.86. And we do have a motion. We'll accept that motion. We have a second. Thank you.
Councilmember Binkowski?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett?
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
We've approved our consent agenda, and we'll move on to new business. Item number A, 9A, is consideration of the second reading and adoption of an ordinance to amend the City of Clawson Code of Ordinance, Chapter 46, Offenses and Miscellaneous Provisions. Article 3, Offenses Against Property, Section 46 through 84, Trespass, to add specific punishment for the violation.
I move the second reading and adoption of the ordinance, just says number, whatever it is, to amend this City Code of Ordinance, Chapter 46, Offenses and Miscellaneous Provisions, Article 3, Offenses Against Property, Section 46-84, Trespass, to add specific punishment for violation, to be approved and ordered published.
Support.
Mr. Ricker?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Clawson Code of Ordinance, Section 46, TAC 84, trespass, defines the crime of trespassing onto and remaining on another's property when otherwise not privileged to do so. Currently, the ordinance does not contain within it a specific statement concerning the punishment for the violation of the ordinance. The ordinance does reference MCL 750.552, the state statute concerning trespass, which carries with its punishment, see attached. The city attorney is respectfully requesting that in order to avoid confusion, we amend section 46 TAC 84 to add the specific punishment for the violation as stated in this amendment.
Any questions or concerns? Roll call, please, Michelle.
Mayor Milan?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett?
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski?
Yes.
Thank you. We have now adopted this ordinance, and we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is consideration of the special event permit request for the Millionaire Farms to sell produce on Sundays at the city park.
Madam Mayor, I move the special event permit request for the Millionaire Farms to sell produce and baked goods on Sundays at the Clawson City Park parking area from 9 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. from May 5th, 2024 through November 4th, 2024 be approved as presented.
Support.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mayor,
Oh, sorry.
The city manager the city clerk clarified this. This is different from the farmers market that we approved because these folks will be here every weekend instead of just on the certain days. Is that correct?
that's correct.
Okay.
Okay, great. Anyone else? No, roll call.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett?
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
Yes. Thank you. We've approved this special event permit, and we encourage you to go visit Bob and Julie on Sundays and get your produce and baked goods because they're really nice. We'll move on to item number 9C. Consideration of appointment of Jacqueline Stanley to the Traffic and Safety Board to an expired term of May 1st, 2023 to expire May 1st, 2026.
So moved.
Support.
Any comments? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett?
Yes.
Thank you. Jacqueline Stanley will now she'll continue serving on the Traffic and Safety Board. We appreciate her service. Item 9D is consideration of an appointment of Kristen Harpster to the Historical Commission to an expired term of July 1st, 2023 to expire July 21st, 2026.
So moved. Support.
Any comments?
July 1st.
July 1st, 2026.
Okay, just making sure.
Right?
Moved as printed.
Roll call.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett?
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
Thank you, Kristen Harpster, for your willingness to serve on our historical committee. Item 9E is consideration of reappointment of Valerie Glander to the Downtown Development Authority to an expired term of October 31st, 2023, to expire October 31st, 2027.
So move.
Support.
Any comments? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Binkowski?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett?
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Valerie Glander, for your willingness to continue to serve on the DDA. Item 9F is consideration of reappointment of Cindy Smith to the Zoning Board of Appeals to an expired term of December 31st, 2023, to expire December 31st, 2026.
So move.
Support.
Any comments? Roll call, please.
Mayor Milan?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett?
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski?
Yes.
And thank you, Cindy Smith, for your willingness to continue to serve on the Zoning Board of Appeals. We appreciate you as well. Item 9G is consideration of an update on Shalom School.
I move to hear the update by city manager regarding Shalom Schools.
Support.
Breaker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At February 20th, 2024 regular city council meeting, an impromptu discussion was hosted by the city council and members of the community regarding the Shalom School site. A motion from the council directed me to investigate plans that can feasibly be obtained regarding the Shalom property by the next city council meeting. The following day, I contacted Superintendent Shellen Barger and included Board President Frink and Mayor Milan, requesting his most unambiguous response to whether the district would entertain a financially competitive offer for the city to acquire the Shalom site for municipal use. Superintendent Shellen Barger made it crystal clear that he spoke for the board when he shared they would not entertain such an offer from the city. The district believes they will attract additional students from the development at Shalom, and they are not going to give that opportunity up. I also met with concerned residents regarding Shalom on February 22nd, 2024, and I shared this information with them. This information was also shared with council in my weekly update to them on February 23rd.
Okay. Any comments?
There was some, and I guess this question, I guess, is for the city manager and/or the city attorney. There were some points made that perhaps our planning commission is now out of the process for this parcel. Can you guys share any light on this?
No, that's not correct.
Okay. So the planning commission will be?
Of course.
Okay, thank you.
Any development.
Following up on that, there was a question regarding the large lot ordinance and how it will or won't apply for that parcel or other parcels that the school has.
I can give a general notion, not specific, obviously, response to it, because that matter is not before the planning commission, and it certainly is not before council. To the extent that we can entertain such an idea, I would imagine that no, that would not apply, but depending, it will be situation specific.
Do you mean no, it will not apply because it's not pertinent, or because it's going to be like?
I would imagine, council member, that it would be, the area is already platted. So
Pardon me?
there's already, I don't think the large lot ordinance will apply as currently presented, meaning it will not inhibit the development of the parcel as has been already outlined.
Because they're not defined as large lots?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Again, a follow-up on that part of it is that it was originally established as Arrow Garden subdivision with plats that was submitted to the county and the state in 1928.
It was already platted, that's correct.
Well, then, if we established a large lot ordinance after 1928, would that not supersede whatever, like, why even do an ordinance then if it's not going to take precedence over something that already exists? That makes zero sense to me.
I don't dispute your statement, ma'am.
But you're saying, but too bad. Is that what you're saying? Okay. All right. Anyone else?
Yes, I would like to. I keep hearing numbers like 42 houses on the Shalom land, and how there's a lot of development. I assume somebody drew up those plans. Who is funding that and who's the company? For example, right now, the school district owns Shalom. They may do it, they may demolish the building, they may sell the property as they see fit. But as far as going forward for construction of homes, condos, whatever, who's currently developing that? Planning Commission is, I'm assuming, is not totally tuned in. So what's the mechanism whereby this 42 home development is being established?
So when the school district was initiating their RFP, they had a consultant that drafted that RFP who pulled language from our zoning ordinance for the residential districts that we have in place when it comes to setbacks, building height, those type of items that most single-family homes are built towards. And that consultant, I believe, used that previous plotted parcel map and drew up a rough estimate of what the school board was kind of looking for with home sizes. And then companies that were submitting their proposal drafted their proposal based on that RFP that went out. And so at this point, it's all been conceptual. As I don't want to speak for the school district. I don't know for certain if they've made a final determination yet. So any plan discussed is truly a concept right now, and it'll have to be vetted and approved by the city. And while the school district may approve something, what the city ends up approving may be a little bit different, just because they might not have had the same planning reviews, engineering reviews. So it's truly conceptual at this stage.
Okay, fair enough. So it's conceptual.
Yes.
I assume the school board will be selling that property to a developer for, I think, I was given numbers, $2.5–3.5 million roughly. That's in our joint meeting with the school board. That was what they kind of estimated that the Shalom property was worth.
That is what Mr. Schellenbarger had shared, yes.
Sure. And that's, of course, at $2.5 to $3 million. That's $3 million, call it, for basically an empty piece of land. Because they're going to knock, I assume, and I believe the school district will be knocking down the building.
That is my understanding
Out of their own fund. So they'll be presenting an empty piece of land to an investor. Correct?
I believe that's part of the actual sale development agreement.
Okay.
So to put everyone in the room on the spot, I see Mr. Werner here today. Mr. Werner, are you interested at all in speaking to any of these questions? And you don't have to, because it's not a school board meeting, but if you'd like to, you're welcome. Yeah. And you don't have to, right? And, well, first, I need permission to allow him to entertain. Would the council agree?
Yeah, Ted Werner,
Yes, thank
760 Shenandoah, Clawson, Michigan, also school board member. Nice seeing you all again.
Mr. Werner.
I need to make a motion
Please.
really quickly,
Oh,
sorry.
fine.
I'm not going to answer anything, so I don't know if
Order's
you have the
not my
motion.
thing, but that's okay.
Madam Mayor, if I make a motion that we suspend the rules to engage in conversation.
Thank you.
Support.
All in favor? I'm sorry, roll call. Let's do this quick. One more second.
Councilman Shepherd.
Sorry.
Yes.
Councilman Anderson.
Yes.
Councilman Binkowski.
Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett.
Yes. You're on.
The
hot seat.
Like you, I am a board, I'm one of a board, so I'm not eligible, nor can I speak on behalf of the board. We speak as one. Just like when we met with different people that came on, we explained to them our rules and what we can do. So Ted Werner, school board member, is not capable of speaking for the school board as one. I can't do that.
Understood,
Yep.
but you're here and they were speaking for you, and I know that, and if you don't want to say anything at all, you don't have to, but if you want to, you're welcome to.
I
Sorry
can
to
let
put
you
on the
know
spot.
that Nick is spot on. It's conceptual, what is going on. What has been presented nothing has been presented to anyone, nor has the school board finalized anything at this point. We voted on to move forward to our second meeting at this point, and that's all we're at on the sale of the properties. With all that being said, it's the direction we're going. But when it comes to concepts, it is nothing more than a concept. It is nothing more that will be presented to the city once the sale takes place. But I cannot speak as a one individual. So I'm giving you some basic facts that are common facts that have been out there for everybody. If you choose to take those facts, it's entirely up to you. If you choose to manipulate them or change the facts, it's entirely up to you. But what we have done has been very transparent, and we've been and we're appreciative of our joint task force as we move forward, our school board with your committee. But when it comes to the sale of the property, there's only so much that I can say at this point today, if that's fair.
That's 100% fair, and I would just rather give you the opportunity when people are basically speaking on behalf of information that you have, and I know it's public knowledge, but everyone doesn't have it, and,
Yeah.
a little credence to.
I appreciate the
Ownership,
opportunity,
right.
thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we're still in open format.
We still are open for it, right?
Sure.
Still open, right?
It is.
When you sell a property, doesn't the buyer have to know what he's in for in the way of plot layout and how's he gonna bid it if he doesn't know what the plot layout's gonna be? Is he just supposed to guess? I mean, it's an open field when they get through with tearing down everything, but he needs to know what the school board's idea of, and the city's, what the plot is gonna look like.
True.
I know in our last meeting, I made a fairly strong point that the school district has complete authority over their property. They may do with it what they want. But, sir, you're correct. Once they sell it, their authority is ended. And now it's between the city and a contractor who's going to build. And you're right, it will be the city, in conjunction with the planning commission and perhaps zoning commission, to decide how that will be developed. I mean, and here's where it gets interesting. The developer, I'm imagining, is going to want to have some idea of what he can build in there. I don't think he's going to pay the school district $3 million to suddenly find out, oh no, we're all ecologically friendly people. We want it to all be green. I don't think a buyer would be very happy with that option. That's why I don't think we can entertain just leaving the green space. I don't think it'd be good for Clausen's reputation, excuse me, to simply say, no, you can't do anything with that. But again, how that, Mr. Raker, I guess at this point, you've got a concept, but
They have a concept. The school district has a concept.
And they have paid someone to develop this concept, I assume.
It's correct, but it's simply that, just a concept. And when they decide on who they're going to sell the property to, and that transaction is complete, and the site plans move forward, it'll go through the planning process and ultimately be vetted accordingly.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And we have, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
we have building ordinances. And they're still there. I mean, I could knock down my house tomorrow and go through the exact same
Right.
process. So, I mean, it's not like this is the Wild West or something.
Right, exactly. I just find it interesting that they're proceeding to make a purchase. Some developer is going to purchase it as an investor and hopefully make some money. And yet, whatever they develop will be subject to the authority of this board. I'm not going to speculate what could happen, but really, I mean, the concept you've got is probably a good concept for maximizing tax revenue, putting the maximum number of homes on that site. However, there may be other issues in play besides maximizing revenue for the city. And just letting everyone know that this thing is still evolving. It's not resolved. Okay.
Nick, you had your hand up.
I was just going to add that, we probably see concepts for different properties in Clausen every single week, and just because we're shared a concept doesn't mean that's going to be the final product. And most of the bidders for the school property, this is what they do. They go around the state, and if not regionally, and locate sites like this that were former schools, larger areas that were underdeveloped, and then turn it into housing. And so they're very familiar with this process, and whether it's building in a community like Clausen or somewhere rural, they're very familiar. They know what they're doing, and they're reputable in the industry with developing these larger scale lots.
If that's it, we can move on to the next item, which is consideration of.
Close.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm going to close the impromptu public discussion and move back to our regularly scheduled approved agenda and move on to item 9H, which is consideration of development of the fiscal year 2024-2025 City Council administrative goals and objectives.
Madam Mayor, I move to host discussion on development of the fiscal year 2024-2025 City Council administration goals and objectives.
Support.
Thank you. Mr.
Thank you,
Reaper.
Madam Mayor. Discussion of the coming fiscal year's goals and objectives have been commingled with this current year's during council meetings or workshops on December 19th, 2023, January 2nd, 2024, and January 30th, 2024. At the January 30th, 2024 workshop, it was suggested to host budget discussions, first with department heads in order to better identify priorities, and after these discussions, perhaps greater clarity will be gained to move forward with the goals and objectives for fiscal year 24-25. Those discussions were held on February 13th and February 27th. Again, attached are the FY 23-24 approved City Council administrative goals and objectives that may offer a baseline from which to refine and develop them for this coming year. You want me, if I can?
Yeah, sure, go
Sure,
ahead.
please. So we did have those two discussions, and I think they were pretty informative. And I hope it became fairly apparent the direction that I'm going to have to ask council to consider at some point in time, which would be to have ballot language considered for your approval to move forward to be on a ballot, most likely in November. And I would suggest if that is something that we can coalesce around, that and developing information campaign behind it be our addition to the majority of what we have for 23-24. There are some that are on the 23-24 that are just simply tasks that either are accomplished or a couple maybe just need to be removed. But that additional goal objective of producing this ballot initiative and getting an information campaign and ultimately getting it across the goal line with your constituents should be added to the goals and objectives for this coming year as like probably the number one.
I would agree.
So as far as, what category would you, I mean, yes, I agree. How would you categorize it? Just to make sure that we have a place.
There was considerable interest in developing more of there are some in there that you can extrapolate that are more focused on infrastructure, and we could do that in addition to that one just mentioned. I mean, these have been a good baseline for us to utilize and rationalize some of the decisions that have come before council. And so I don't necessarily agree with throwing them all out. I think there's some semantics when it comes to goals, objectives, and tasks. They become more transactional as opposed to aspirational. And I think moving in the aspirational with the intent of what we want this community to be is probably more the direction we want to go as opposed to creating a punch list of items to be completed by a certain date and time.
So I'm guessing we're not going to amend these goals and objectives, or are we just going to leave them as is? Because I would like to amend them. I've got some changes, and you know that.
And I think that's a big discussion. I mean, if we're going to have that tonight, or are we going to have a workshop or something just focused on that? And we tried it before, it didn't go very well. But, you know, I agree. I think that we need to, you know, at the last discussion, you made the suggestion that anything that was achieved, marked green, right, should be pulled off, and I concur with that. So there's a lot of green here, a lot of that would come off, so we would have a lot of opportunity to add some new concepts to the list.
Well, and maybe not everything green needs to be removed. Some of those things could continue, and that's fine, but some of them, like update city park signage, it's done, so let's get rid of it. So why keep it on there? Maybe invest in public art experiences. Maybe we're not there anymore. I have several changes I'd like to make. Do we want to do that now, or do we want to do it resolution by resolution, or do we want to have another workshop where we spin our wheels, or?
We could have a workshop and not spin our wheels.
Councilmember Binkowski, if my memory's correct, in our last workshop, we spun wheels because before we entered the workshop, we decided we weren't going to tear up the format of the evaluation process. We were simply going to add goals. Somehow we got sidetracked to, again, arguing over the format. And however, we did agree there would be a goal that he would submit. We added a goal, which was Mr. Raker would submit a infrastructure plan. And I think, Mr. Raker, you're well along that path, from what I've seen last week. Okay. If there are additional goals that the council would like to add, I'm open, my ears are open.
Same.
I guess,
Well,
we do it tonight?
I would say that I would like to go back to my original language for the infrastructure plan, which is prepare a comprehensive and coordinated plan within calendar year 2024 to address roads, sewers, and water mains within the city, such that all roads are at a fair or better level, aging sewer lines replaced, and water main breaks number 1 or less per calendar year by the year 2035. The word coordinated means that the plan should address water mains and sewer sections simultaneously when roads are repaired. Multiple funding sources and options should be presented to the council for consideration. Can we amend our, I'd like to make a motion to amend our 2023-24 goals to be the 2024-25 goals with that goal added.
Support.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. That's basically what I said in my opening statement. I appreciate that.
Well, but it's basically, but it adds specificity.
Well, we'll do one better. However, you're not going to be able to do a comprehensive because we're not able to borrow $177 million. We can only borrow what our debt limit will allow us to, with probably a little bit less just to be sensible. And so at Tuesday's meeting, we had shared, and I shared also at the Friday feedback this past Friday, the updated numbers from PFM. And our capacity to borrow is roughly $55 million. That is if we were to go before the voters and say, we'd like to return the debt service millage back to 6.0 from a current 4.9. So that's adding 1.1 mils to the current debt service. So, and then with that comes a discussion, a vote of council to potentially get it on the ballot, and then hopefully a united approach to educating the residents on the importance of this ballot initiative.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Binkowski, if I heard your proposal right, it wasn't to do everything, it was to, I think, could you repeat your proposal, please?
Prepare a comprehensive and coordinated plan within calendar year 2024 to address roads, sewers, and water mains within the city, such that all roads are at a fair or better level, aging sewer lines are replaced, and water main breaks number 1 or less per calendar year by 2035. The word coordinated means that the plan should address water mains and sewer sections simultaneously when roads are repaired. Multiple funding sources and options should be presented to the council for consideration. Now, to me, that doesn't mean that we need to absolutely have every single funding thing in place, but we need to have the plan out there so people have an idea of when their road at least might be, fixed.
So the term you used in your language was fair or better.
Yes.
Which sounds good. I don't know if we want to hang a pacer scale on that, or maybe just leave it general and let the proposal speak for itself, and then we can vote on that.
I'll leave it as is.
Okay. Mr. Raker, does that sound acceptable to you?
Like his specific language there?
Yeah, the language of his proposal.
I see the city.
On the table.
What is the motion on the table?
The motion was the initial statement from Mr. Binkowski, right? The specific one.
Just to add that. For 2024, 25. Yes. I mean, I think it's reasonable. I mean, I can't say that. I mean, 2035, you're not going to be able to fund all that is needed to be done. And so at Tuesday's meeting, and within the list of slides that you received, there are prioritized projects.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I think, to the tune of $65 million.
That same plan was followed with the presentation that DPW gave for our finance overview with DPW last week, which was pretty comprehensive about how the plan of attack is to hit all of the things that touch each other at the same time. So we're not doing repetitive repairs that cost more money. And there's also the verbiage that you have for fair or better doesn't necessarily fit into the categories that are defined already. So if that's important, then we need to just ensure that those things line up.
I think I have the spirit of what you're saying. Getting into the actual specific, like, words might be problematic. I mean,
I think, yeah, Mr. Rieger, I think the words fair or better is a decent starting point when you make your formal presentation showing what you can
say
address.
improve the roads. I mean, because some of them are, because some of them, as we discussed, are full-blown reconstruction. Others, we are improving them through the miscellaneous road repair program.
Yes. So in other words, they may only graduate to the fair level. So I think when you make your proposal, you're fine. Like I said, I think you people already, based on our workshop, it looks like you've already laid a really good starting point out. Sounds like most of the homework's been done. You just gotta tweak it, lay it out for us. I think we, then as a council, can decide and say, okay, does that plan look like we're gonna be in good or fair shape or not? Each one is, we'll have to decide for ourselves. But we have a pretty solid idea of how much money we have to spend. The question is how we do it.
But good or fair is not definitive for what we're doing, right? Those are not solid terms to use for this process. And the approach that was given to us last week stated the obvious, which is we cannot complete all of the major roads, which will be at the top. We can't complete all of those at one time because we don't have the funds to do that. So we're going to have to do a mix of some major where we can fill them in, and then a lot of various other levels at the same time. Is that correct? Did I get that correct?
The spirit of it, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So I think the language addresses that, though. It gives a 10-year span to get it completed. It doesn't say do everything at one time. It says, gives a 10-year span, so that allows for it to happen incrementally. The only thing that I think would be fair based on the presentation to maybe modify slightly is there was a lot of discussion from the DPW about how some of the sewer systems don't exist under the roads. Some of them are in the on the sides or whatever. And so I think, and the specificity of your language says the street in conjunction with the sewer, and I think it should say where applicable, because it's not always applicable that they be done at the same time because they don't exist in the same place.
And to me, that's, that's semantics. If they're not under the roads, they're not under the roads.
Right, but in the spirit of specificity, I think that it should be modified slightly to say,
Okay,
where
so it
applicable.
means that the plan should address water mains and sewer sections simultaneously when roads are repaired in the event that said water mains and sewer sections are disposed underneath said roads.
Or can be, yeah, that's fine.
So I will amend my motion to say that.
Support.
And she supports it.
So as far as the fair to, what was your?
Just fair or
Just
better.
fair, okay. I guess, but, and this is where I want to understand the progress, measuring the progress. Yes, I understand as far as the conditions of the road, but I just want to make sure that we're actually completing those things and that at some point in time, we'll have reached 100% of what we have achieved, right? So, I mean, is there something as far as a percentage each year that could potentially be as a yardstick in order to try and achieve?
Ideally, yes, but there'd be probably a lot of other factors that
Oh,
come into that.
absolutely, yeah. Yeah, that's why I was just throwing that out there, that, okay, I don't want to be too specific, because you're going to get into situations where you're handcuffed to this, and there's other things that arise,
Yeah,
right? So, one of the other ones is on the, was it one water main break per year? Yeah, it was one of those things that I'm not sure
They're
that's.
trending down.
They are, yeah, but I mean, you're going to have a situation where it's just like force majeure, and it's like, yeah, there's nothing we can do about it, right? But,
If there's still more than one water break a year, I want the plan to get to that.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, it's absolutely everything's gonna be, roses and dandelions after that, so.
I think you'll have a reduction. The DPW's already proven over time that there are reductions in the water main breaks. I don't think it's realistic to say you'll get down to one water main break a year. It's a nice
It's
aspiration.
aspirational goal.
But it's not controllable, that's the problem.
Yeah.
There's none of that you can control, because it's weather, it's age, it's force, it's like, there's constraints that you can't control.
And that goes back to how much have you achieved based off of what we had set out in the first place, right? So as far as for sewers, right, that we've achieved 80% by year 5 or whatever it is, that we can track that. And
The one thing that you might not be aware of, Mr. Winkowski, is that AEW brought it to our attention that we really do need to camera and clean all the sewer lines to get a baseline understanding of that component. We understand in order of understanding Pacer, the quality of the roads, the age of the water mains, but the sewer lines, they need to be revisited. So
Right,
that's
and
the priority.
And if it's my understanding, you've asked Representative McDonald for hopefully
Correct.
funding for that, so.
And we had discussion during the workshop of actually moving forward with that initiative and funding it ourselves with the hope of being reimbursed, just because there's really no virtue in waiting until the next budget cycle to initiate that program. We have a fund balance that they can take it.
Okay, anything else? So we have Michelle, would you be able to, no, Greg, or Glenn, did you have something?
No, I guess go back to the one per year, as far as the water main breaks, I'm not sure that's achievable one way or another, but.
Okay, well, we can, if you'd like to change it, we could say, and reduce water main breaks. I mean.
Minimize.
I mean, to me, it's the goal to have in 10 years.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's achieved is.
Well, I would reduce it per year, right? So that we've achieved, and even then, that's a tough, because you have no idea that what,
Right.
because there may be some, after a new project.
There's going to be
some
surprises.
Yeah,
I can promise
exactly.
you there's going to be
I don't know
a
how
lot of surprises.
Yeah. Then it goes back to, you've got a sewer, you've got to repair it, it's got to get updated by a certain point in time, right? And we want to understand, that those goals are met for that project, but.
Again, this is for the city manager to present a plan to us to hopefully achieve that.
Okay.
It's not necessarily like it's going to happen, 11 years from now.
My concern is the binary effect of it, right? That's a yes or no. You had one this year, so guess what?
And, yeah.
Mr. Binkowski, for the clarity of our city clerk and her sanity, may we read to you the motion, the original motion on the table, and then perhaps have you repeat your amendment as seconded so that she can proceed with a positive statement for the motion going forward?
Absolutely.
So I'm not going to get into the statement, the whole statement, because that's not the motion. The motion is, how I have it, is the consideration of amending the 23-24 goals and objectives to add the coordinated comprehensive infrastructure plan to the 24-25 goals and objectives. That's the motion. I know that you have a statement
Yes.
that will be given to Mr. Raker to be included in the goals, but I have the motion as that, if that's how I'm reading it.
That's fairly broad.
I like it.
Yeah.
With my statement in it.
Well,
Okay.
Your statement's will be like acting papers to give to the city manager to help to meet that goal, not part of the goal, or not part of the motion, correct?
Right. So that's our question. Did you want to amend the motion that is on the table to include that specific and detailed statement?
Yes.
Okay. And that's the one that Councilmember Moffitt seconded, is that
correct.
correct? All right. We'll have to get the language thereafter, so, that specific statement simply amends.
to write it.
Specify, that's fine. Yeah, so then Madam Mayor would have to vote on the amendment first.
Okay.
The amendment.
The amendment,
Amendment to the motion, which is, the specific
To
statement.
include the.
With the specifics
statement in the motion.
I think that was your original motion, was just to simply amend the current 23-24 goals and make them add his statement, which then makes them the 24-25 goals.
Correct.
That's why we're inquiring for her clarification. The specific additional statement seems to, even though it's tailored as an amendment, seems to be an explanation. So that's why we're seeking an explanation.
I can add statement to the motion, because that's what he said. He read the statement.
Correct.
So if that's okay, as long as there's an understanding what that statement is. I obviously don't have what you have in front of you.
Yeah, I can read it again, or we can
we
go back to
discussed
the
it
video
already. I
and
think
look
we're-
at it.
we're-
so.
That fast, but I would be happy to have that in the minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone good? Roll call, please, Michelle.
Councilmember Binkowski.
Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett.
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Okay, we have amended 25 goals to include infrastructure piece.
What's that?
Piece to you. What?
I've got another amendment.
Okay, wait, I have to acknowledge what we just did. So I was just acknowledging what we did.
We have another vote though, right?
Yeah, that was
Because
the
that one was modifying
That was the
the
amendment.
original
But I
motion, so there's
was
another.
acknowledging what we just did, and now we can go on
You
to
have
the
the main
next.
motion now on the table.
Right, right.
You ready to vote?
Roll call. Ready, we're ready. Beyond ready.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski.
Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett.
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes.
Okay, and we just did that. Yes, sir, Mr. Binkowski?
I move to amend the 2024-2025 goals to add the following goal. Produce a plan for high-speed vehicle charging stations in at least one public parking lot.
Support.
All right. Would this be free electricity or would we be charging for it?
As far as I'm concerned, we should charge for it, because that's what everybody does. And I think that Mr. Raker and his staff is perfectly capable of presenting us a plan about how to do this, and we can vote on that later. But I want to move forward on it.
I guess I'd like to know the feasibility, right? So whether or not that's within what the budget is in order to put that in place, how much of an infrastructure would take in order to support that? Yeah, are we repaving parking lots? Are we including that in site plans for other businesses when they move into areas that need public parking? I think there's a lot that's there. I support it in theory. I just need to know the details first, so.
It's just to present a plan.
Right, that's
fine.
part of the plan, right?
So
Because I think, did you say to present a plan, or did you say to achieve?
Produce
one?
plan
Oh,
for high-speed vehicle charging stations in at least one public parking lot.
all right. And I assume there'll be some cost to put this in place.
That'll be part of the plan.
And I'll be honest with you, I'm not interested in this, if we can get some kind of federal grant from on high, sure. If the federal government wants to give us free charging stations, sure, and then we make money off selling it, fine. But I'll be honest with you, I'm not interested in the citizens of Clawson paying for this. There's a funny trivia question I'd like to ask is, if you owned a car in 1910, where'd you get your gas? Answer, the hardware store. Because there were no gas stations, there weren't enough to justify the cars. One of the oldest gas stations was in Royal Oak, built in like the 19-teens. So nobody cried out to the federal government, hey, build us gas stations for our cars. I'm at the point, I don't want the citizens of Clawson subsidizing someone else's energy bill by paying for infrastructure.
And that's
But if
fine.
the feds will pay for it, or the state, I'm willing to listen.
To me, honestly, that these stations should pay for themselves and provide a revenue to the city.
Mr. Raker?
So, to segue off of Councilmember Binkowski, we do have a parking issue that we need to address probably in this coming year, and that could be a facet of that.
Sure.
This is also a conversation that the DDA is having, looking at ways to bring charging stations into the downtown. So perhaps this is a comprehensive plan we all look at together. Nick?
This is also something that the planning commission is, I believe, gearing towards having in the master plan as well. So it is a goal that we'll be addressing. I think that's fair. And there's a ton of different organizations that provide this type of service. And I think if that's the goal in mind, we'd discuss with those and have a plan, and the council make a decision based on what we get from that.
I think we can achieve both addressing our parking issues and simultaneously including a component of electric charging. I mean, I think that kind of goes hand in hand naturally.
Okay. Michelle, would you like to read that motion for us?
Consideration of amending the 24-25 goals and objectives to direct the city manager to produce a plan for a high-speed charging station in one parking lot.
Wow, well done.
So let's have a roll call vote.
Mayor Milan?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett?
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski?
Yes.
Okay, we'll have that plan, and I was going to say, I know you have another one for us. Go for it, Mr. Binkowski.
Move to amend the 2024-25 goals to strike the words "update city park signage."
Support.
Mr. Raker.
I don't think we need an action of council to eliminate what is accomplished. That'll come forth in a more comprehensive list of what is being shared here. I think we're getting into the aegis of just basic administration.
So to the extent that the council, the previous council wrote these goals and objectives and submitted them, the changes to the goals and objectives need to be an act of council as well, right? I mean, are you suggesting that you would just write the goals and objectives and give them to us to be accepted?
No, the ones that are obviously complete, I would point out to you. In fact, if I had the opportunity, which I did put it on the agenda a couple times to brief you on these, but you guys didn't want to hear about that.
No, we listened to you.
No, that's
and
not true. I have the floor at the moment. So you didn't want to hear about that. I provided that I don't know how many times to you. Okay, so I am willing to. I've also said in my budget timeline, which we're going to talk about next, that I'd like some feedback from you as to when we would have these meetings and when we would talk about goals and objectives. And I said, hey, at this meeting on the 5th is one of those days, along with the 19th and I think the meeting in April. And so it's not like I haven't shared the opportunity with you. And so if you don't take the opportunity, then yes, I will provide the feedback that you've given me along with what has been accomplished for the new set of goals and objectives.
Mr. Riker, I don't think it's your role to scold us, which you just did. I suggested earlier that anything that was completed be removed, and that was scoffed at. So Mr. Binkowski followed up on that, suggesting that something specific that was completed be removed. And so I think it's a fine motion for him to make. These goals and objectives are supposed to be reflective of what the council wants you to be focused on. And I just don't understand why you're going to chastise a motion that he made.
It's very elementary in nature.
Let's get permission to speak so
Pardon
that
me,
people aren't
pardon me,
speaking
Mayor.
over each other.
That's fine. Go ahead, Mr. Raker.
I'm just pointing out how administratively elementary it is and that it would be obviously removed.
All right, well, if I may, there are numerous of these goals that are green. Are we going to strike them down one by one, or shall we strike them as a bundle? I think some of them are complete, so we can remove them. Some of them are maybe complete, but as Mr. Minkowski said, maybe they need to be expanded a bit. So
I only want to strike the one because it's done. And that way since we're setting the 24-25 goals, we don't need it on there. It just seems simple.
Mr. Raker, you're in charge of this list, because you're the holder of this list, right? You're responsible for it. I don't really have a problem striking one item, like that doesn't seem problematic. It seems like more trouble to say, no, we're not going to strike one, let's wait and do whatever we would do outside of that.
Your pleasure, ma'am.
No, my question to you is, what plan did you have for this? Like, this is on the agenda today, and I don't mind talking about it, but I want a conversation about it. Like, we have someone who brought a list and was extremely prepared for this, and then we have other people who are like, maybe not. I don't know what that means. I feel like maybe not the best way to discuss this, where everyone feels like they had input on it, because some of us feel like it's okay, kind of. And I don't have a problem with adding new things to it, but I don't want to recreate the whole document. I think we've said that repeatedly, and for good reason. It's because it's a sound working document. Nothing wrong with adding more that are our goals moving forward. That's a wise thing to do, but I don't want to nitpick it through.
If you would like, we could go through in each one and just say, hey, strike that, keep it. I mean, because I think the more aspirational ones give greater guidance as to what we're striving for. Where the transactional ones, I mean, it's just that, it's just transactional. It's a task.
Councilmember Binkowski.
If it makes it clear, that's the only one I wanted to strike, and I have one more to add, and then I'm done. So, but
I
whatever.
would like to say, I mean, I am in support of removing it, right? I mean, if that's the direction that you've completed it, it doesn't need to be on the list. But I would prefer not to go into the minutia like that. That's the only reason.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I was hoping we would have done this in the January meeting, the goal-setting workshop, but we didn't, so we're here.
Okay, so we have a motion.
Only one more?
Only one more.
Okay.
We have a motion on the table for this. Let's have a roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett?
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
Yes, we have struck a green item off the list. And we will move on to Mr. Binkowski's next item on the list.
Madam Mayor, I move to amend the 24-25 city goals to include the following: overhaul city website by March 2025. Ensure important dates and messages are on the homepage.
Support?
Yes.
I'll leave a comment here. The council recently hired folks to improve communications with the city. And I know it might be, and I've said this before, it might be a little bit of laziness on the city residents' parts, but the same questions keep coming up. Is the trash delay today? When does the leaf pickup start? When does the leaf pickup end? What do we have to do? Etc. If we can put those things right on the homepage, including, this week's meeting dates, I think it would be great. The website itself is a bit clunky. It's not great to manage, to find things. And I just think that we can do a little better in communication with the residents.
Okay, I think those are great items. I support you fully, and I also think those are part of this somewhere in smaller form, and I don't think anyone here will fight that. Right, Mr. Raker, it's something you're working towards already, so.
I have no issue with that, ma'am.
Thank you. Anything else?
No.
Michelle, let's have one more roll call.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett?
Yes.
Thank you. We will work on communications moving forward. And then, is that it for this topic? Does anyone else have anything else on this matter?
I don't exactly have it fleshed out, but I'd like, so a motion to address as one of the goals, an issue of non-responsiveness from city administration. And because we regularly get emails saying, I tried to call, or I didn't get a call back, So whether it's just a letter saying I can't discuss it with you, or something like that, so that we don't hear residents saying, I'm not getting my calls returned. So a goal along those lines to be added.
Support?
So, like I said, we regularly get emails or people coming to us saying, I'm not getting a call back. And I know that sometimes there's, at the guidance of council or whatever, that the city administration is not returning calls. So whether it's, some sort of measurement system, like I said, I want to brainstorm on this, or a letter that gets sent out saying, we can't return your call because of X, Y, Z, or we received your call, but we can't respond because of this. But for the city administration, for us regularly to get an email saying, we've gotten a couple just in the past couple of weeks. City administration is not returning my call, And like I said, there might be a valid reason for it, but there should be an acknowledgement of those calls.
Or perhaps, Mr. Rager, on your part, you could just simply respond to the council, Citizen Smith had a complaint about such and such, this is what I'm doing. Just a quick email response as far as.
Not to us, sorry to interrupt, but not to us, but to the citizens, so that the citizens know that they're being heard, or that there's a reason, like they're not being ignored and it's going into a black hole.
All right, let me ask you, Mr. Rager, when you receive complaints from the citizens of all different varieties, I assume you or your staff is responding. Is that true?
Absolutely. I'm kind of the regularity that this happens, and it seems more than a little bit, I don't know exactly what the right term would be for it, because if this has been going on a regular basis, why haven't you brought it to my attention before?
Mr. Rager, it's kind of like this. We get emails, if I may say, I have this complaint. I've called the city and they haven't done anything about it. We on council read this stuff, it's like, okay, well, that's one side of the story. I'd like to hear Mr. Raker's. So if you could simply, when these things come up, since you are addressing them, let the council know, for citizen such and such, I have done the following. It may not be everything that person wants, but at least we know as a council that you've addressed that. And then if this dispute continues between citizens and the administration, then maybe we as individuals can help the situation. I prefer not to, but sometimes every now and then we at council have to call a citizen to talk through a few things. I've done that on occasion. I prefer not to do a lot of it.
Yes, but I mean, I'm not trying to stop you from talking to citizens at all, but if there isn't a resolution, then I would imagine you would come to the city administration about that as opposed to a public forum.
What my motion is addressing is that something be put in place so that citizens' concerns are acknowledged, so that we don't get those emails anymore saying, or those people commenting to us saying that they're not getting a response. And as I said before, I acknowledge that I understand there's sometimes where you're not responding on advice of counsel or whatever it is, but so that people are always getting some sort of acknowledgement for their concerns from the city administration and making that a goal. And so then we can measure it against, if we get 5 emails in a month that it's not happening, it can be measured against those goals.
I haven't seen that, and I'm not sure where it's coming from. We just had comment today that, hey, the administration's been responsive.
You were on the emails, the same emails that I got. I don't want to call out the residents, but it was people that came and spoke at the last council meeting about her sewer issues, that she wasn't getting a call back. There's a couple other times we've gotten emails where they're not being acknowledged.
But I also understand that they have been spoken to on a number of occasions. So, I mean, in fact, there's been a couple of residents who've come up and spoken that I have had an opportunity to speak afterwards and said, like, yeah, I've gotten great response. Now, is there one or two? I guess, but I certainly haven't seen it. I certainly don't think it's cause for concern that we need to have an objective that says there will not be any, right? It's going to happen. I don't see the merit in it.
I just think the citizens are important enough to be acknowledged.
Well, of course they are.
That's all I'm trying to make sure happens.
Here's the thing. I think we agree. Mr. Raker's claim is he is acknowledging them and addressing them. My answer is, okay, great. Mr. Raker, just please, when you address them, shoot us a quick email, whether in your Friday update or whatever, so we know for ourselves. And I know you've done this in the past.
Problem with that is then I've had individual council members then go and do something, use that. It's not, I think it would be improper then to start airing this in exchanges with council members, because this simply just is not a problem. And I think we'll be asking for one if we go down this road and micromanage the complaints of the residents that I think are being addressed.
I don't know that council wants to get involved. There's many times there's disputes between citizens and the administration. I'm not going to try to get into the details. I've had them call you corrupt before. Okay, I'm not going to sit there and figure out, hey, is he really corrupt or not? I just want to know that You responded.
Actually, I would like you to, quite honestly. I mean, don't sit there and not not have a clear conscience about
Well, you
that.
can't have it both ways. So my point is, all we want to know is that there's confirmation you responded. That's all we ask. And once that's done, I'm not going to get into the middle of it. I
Well-
sure don't want to.
And you're absolutely right. To the extent that's the statement, that we don't have to acknowledge or address anything that people bring to us. That there's, we got
Precisely
an
an
answer,
accurate
we got
statement.
called, we got a call back. It's the not getting any response from the city, not the details of the response or the disposition of the request, but just that they're getting a contact back. And if that is what's happening, then yeah, then it's done in my mind.
I would welcome this discussion with the regularity of these complaints that you receive, and we could take it from there.
You're on all the same emails. You're on them as well.
I know, my general practice is to just either ask you or send you a little quick note that says, have you responded to this person? And I'm generally good with it. And because I know how I am with email, I have a lot of other responsibilities, and I'll look at my city email and I'll be like, okay, wait, need to respond. Sometimes you do it right away. Sometimes it takes a couple days because you have other things going on. But I generally circle back to you and ask if you've done it or not. And I just kind of have to trust that because
Yes.
I'm not going
And
to
I-
micromanage it. And I think just knowing that it is a concern, like today is an example of the importance of hearing public speak and having the public know that we're listening to them. I think that is why we all got into this in the first place. It's extremely important to all of us to have that two-way communication, and we have to trust that that's what's going on. And if it's not going on, then we need to, make it known. I think that's the way to do it. We have to, we're professionals, we have to assume that it's taking place. And sometimes things do fall between the cracks, but what's the norm? And I think the norm is generally pretty good.
I think there's been occasions where you've asked, has this been addressed?
Yes.
Right? And that's,
Yep.
I think this is the proper channel in which to do it.
We can do it on the side, like, it doesn't have to be an embarrassment thing. It's best to not do that for any of the parties involved, but we definitely have the right to ask, I would say. I would say we have the right to ask, being representatives of the community, but
It's when you
expected.
insert yourself into the issues of administration and enforcement with the residents that it becomes problematic.
That's
That's
not
precisely,
what's exactly what we're saying, is we
As-
want to not have
I don't
to
want to-
ever
I do
insert
too.
ourselves
I do too.
to know
I do
that
too.
it's being
All I need-
acknowledged. That's
we get
exactly
these-
what Councilman
Again, we get these
Manderson said.
complaints, we as a council just want to know, did Mr. Raker address them? If the answer is yes, we're done. If it's no, then we may have to bug you a little bit. Yeah, no, we do not, I for one personally do not want to insert myself in any disputes between the city and a resident. They don't pay us enough, so.
anything else on this? We have a motion on the table that says, I don't remember, could we please repeat the motion?
Consideration of amending the 24-25 goals and objectives to address issues of non-responsiveness of city administration.
and I would, just the way it's characterized in itself, we post these goals and objectives that basically is an affirmation by council to say that is basically saying, yes, this is happening, which I wholeheartedly disagree with.
I would agree that to simply say addressing the non-response, I don't know that Mr. Raker hasn't addressed everything. People are saying he doesn't respond. Perhaps he hasn't responded in a manner which they'd like to hear.
So how about I amend it to say, to measure the responsiveness of the administration?
Well, how do we do, what's the measurable? Like, because we
that's-
don't know what comes in, right? What we see is a fraction of what I assume they see on a day-to-day basis. So I worked for a community that we received detailed reports about every call that went through, and we knew like what happened and then who was responsible for it and all of that. But that was a lot of work, and these guys probably don't want to take that on, nor do I actually want that from them. It wasn't really helpful to know that. It's just another way to kind of, it's just not helpful, I think. I think we have to trust our professionals here, and if there's a problem, we bring it up, but I don't think there's a way to measure this. If there was a way to measure it, it would be one thing, but there isn't a way to measure it without micromanaging someone's professional services on a day-to-day basis, and we don't have the scope to do that.
So I also included a mechanism to acknowledge acknowledge residents' concerns in the instance where they don't feel that they can be answered. I mean, you know, again, you've been on the emails. They've said, I've called 5 times and never gotten a call back. I've called and never, and no one's ever spoke to me. And in those instances, when they are under the guidance of council or whatever to not respond, to have some sort of mechanism where the citizen is acknowledged that they've reached out, however they can't address their issue.
I think the person you're referring to is actually being acknowledged through some proceedings that are ongoing.
No, I'm not talking about any one person in particular. I can think of 3 emails.
'cause
I am
there's
not. I
probably
can think
about
of
2 or
3
3 that
emails
you're
that we
referring to.
received.
Hey, how about this? I think that could be important, and I think that could be addressed. And I'm sorry, I have a really bad headache. I can't think. I don't know what my thought was. So,
Madam Mayor,
how do we a blanket statement to anyone? I think would be good for an email, right? Just a receipt email, like that's easy, right? And not obstructive for any reason. You don't necessarily have, and you probably do it anyways. I don't know what you do on a daily basis. You probably do it anyways, but ensuring that someone is acknowledged is basic, right? That's it. And however you do that in your own scope, because it's your scope to do, that's what we just expect, I guess, is what she's saying, right? And I'm sorry.
no, you're fine. Madam Mayor, I just wanted to point out there was no second to the proposed
No.
amendment, which means that
Can't talk about it.
falls. You're back to the main motion on the table, which, if I may, Michelle, consideration of amending the 2024-25 goals and objectives to address issues of non-responsiveness of city administration. That's the motion on the table.
Okay.
And council members, I'd ask that you would not support it.
If we're finished, does anyone have anything else on this?
Yeah, just say the verbiage as exists is like the old saying, when are you going to stop beating your wife?
That's right.
Okay, that's not a question, it's an accusation that there's something going on.
Listen to him finish. It sounds horrible, but he's got it.
Not horrible. That's all. I'm just saying, it's not a question, it's an accusation,
A point.
right? And that's what this motion sounds like. We're accusing him of non-performance, we want to address the issue. I want to go back to, let's just,
Statement that you're not in favor of beating anyone's wife.
I agree.
Please, because it's not really a funny thing, right? So,
It's not, but my point is, that it's not, it's as a joke, although, bottom line is, it's an accusation wrapped up in a question.
Which is why I tried to modify it to something more positive, but it didn't get us support, so.
So we'll start
Okay,
with,
so we have a motion on the table. Let's vote for that motion.
I'm sorry?
Let's vote on the motion that is on the table.
Councilman Anderson.
no.
Councilman Binkowski.
No.
Mayor Milan.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett.
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd.
No.
Did you want to modify that, Councilmember Moffett? Is there any way you could modify that to make your, you said you would.
Agree with where you're going. It's
Well, then
just-
then suggest better language, please.
Okay, I would suggest that motion that perhaps whenever there is a complaint on the part of a citizen that involves emailing the council that we become aware of, we would also like to get Mr. Raker's side of how he responded.
I think that's dangerous.
Why is it dangerous?
Do we actually need to ask our
Yes.
executive professional of our community to verify what he does and doesn't do? Like, is that really critical? I think in an individual basis, if anyone has a concern that they feel a resident or they have not been responded to appropriately, that's an individual transaction. Mr. Raker?
I just want to point out that every communication I send to this council ends, and I bet you, some of you can tell me what it ends with.
I'm available by my cell or whatever.
Please, yeah, if you wish to discuss, please contact me on the city cell. Every single one, and how, and I can tell you who calls me and who doesn't, and I'll leave it at that for the moment.
Well, I email.
All right. Fair enough. Fine.
So where are we? Do we have a motion? Do we need another motion? Are we clear on this?
No support.
We're moving on. We are moving on. We are moving on to item 9I, which is consideration of discussing the proposed budget timeline for fiscal year 24-25. Mr. Raker.
Madam Mayor, I move to host discussion on the proposed budget timeline for fiscal year 2024, 2025.
Thank you.
Support.
Thanks. Now, Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The City Council received the attached memo at the beginning of February. Within it is a request for council members' availability for work sessions and requests for input regarding goals and objectives. The attached is merely a proposal. If it is in the council's interest, by charter, we are to present the budget to you in the month of April and the approval in the month of May. What you have before you is utilizing the second meetings that are currently scheduled for both of those actions respectively. In conversation with the finance director and staff, we believe we can get the budget if you are interested. We can get it to you and complete by the first meeting in May. That would then slide this proposed timeline to the left, if you're interested. And if you are, I can make this modification. The other thing, with your input, please, these goals and objectives, we've had a conversation, we'll make these amendments, we'll refine that document for your consideration through the budget process. Well, what I would like to be able to do is come back to you, and all those things that were socialized with you, say, hey, this is how it's getting in the budget or not getting in the budget, and this is the net impact on that fund or the bottom line. And that way, there's not a whole lot of baking this in, and you guys can say, thumbs up, thumbs down on this initiative or whatnot, or it'll give you a level, all of us a level of confidence to move forward and assemble the budget in its totality, because you already know the narrative behind it as far as the changes that we're making. And so we'd have another kind of a qualitative and quantitative conversation, and this is the net impact to the budget, and this is where it's coming from. And hopefully you have hopefully that'll give you the confidence, and maybe we don't need to have a budget, multiple budget meetings at that time. So, and we could do that. I'm confident we could do that update probably within the scope of a regular meeting. And then from that, we can decide if we need to have as many as 3 budget meetings or not. I mean, this is what we're doing, is we're taking a different approach, which I think makes a lot more sense than what has been done in the past, where you guys have just been like, here's the budget, kind of like thumbs up or thumbs down. You're participating in the conversations to make the budget more relative to case in point, the outcry from the flooding for the last year. We're fast-tracking the televising of the sewer system because of that. And it's because of largely your ambition to do it in January, which was, not necessarily feasible, but it did produce a different and better result.
Okay, I'm in favor of that. I'm in favor of moving the timeline up, if anyone else is.
I guess exactly what changes are we, because according to the schedule, it says April 16th, the budget presented to council.
Correct.
And you're saying,
we could potentially move that back to the first meeting in April, possibly.
Oh, first meeting in April. You said first meeting in May, and I got
No,
confused.
that's the budget itself being approved. So there's a presentation in April.
Okay.
And then there's a approval in May.
Okay.
So we would just potentially, we can definitely move the final product move it up to the first meeting in May, and then all this would then slide. But I think giving you an update on the discussions that we had from the discussions with department heads and how that impacts the budget, just a presentation, not a necessarily fund by fund, at least gives us greater direction as to all right, the things that were discussed, this is where it's going to go in the budget, and this is how it's going to impact it, and then proceed. And then from there, the budget's off and running. And then maybe we have a budget presentation, so we kind of front-loaded, 2 budget meetings with the assistance of your input to come up with the final document. And so maybe we do in review have, there's something that you guys catch, and then we have come back for a second meeting if necessary, or workshop. And we have, in the past, I think the last 2 years, we've scheduled 3 and only have done 2 each respectively, so.
Yeah, I'm in favor of moving it up. The question I have is, as far as legislative funds and when that would come out of appropriations? Do we have a timeline?
Yes, so we actually were with the Congress, we had a good exchange. Because this continuing resolution, the appropriations bill is not passed in totality, so that money is still tied up, which is something that I, as a reservist, often experience this because I'm traveling when these things happen. But like now, as we were like, all right, where's the funding coming from? And it having to be explained to us that these continuing resolutions do not provide the authorization to start reimbursing us or cutting those grants.
So we won't have an answer at that point in time. We'll have to do an amendment at some point if we, in fact, those are grants that are released, monies that are allocated.
Well, I think it's fair that we're probably, it's just not accessible. They're in the plan, they've made it through the wickets in the House and the Senate.
Yeah.
It's just now a matter of the continuing resolution doesn't include the allocation of those funds for the grants, and it's gumming up the works.
Okay.
I think the finance director talked about not budgeting for receiving grants and building the budget without them and then modifying if we get them, and I think that's prudent.
That was just why my question, like, is there going to be a chance that we could get, a definitive answer on when these monies would be, if it's continuing resolution and it goes, kicks the can down the road?
It just keeps kicking the can down the road.
That's fine. Okay.
So I can redo this timeline, moving it up to the meetings in the first meeting in each month respectively, so that we could potentially present it to you the first meeting in April. That would then have me, well, here we're already in March, so it might call for a special meeting at some point in time, just to keep an aggressive timeline.
Sounds good.
Yeah, better move it up.
Okay. I'll resend this proposed budget timeline with it moved up, and if we'll have an update to you as far as the impacts of what was discussed at those two workshops. We'll have an update and presentation to council for that. And then if there is another need to have a workshop after the budget is presented, then so be it, we'll do it.
Great. Is that all for this topic?
I'll have a revised timeline for your consideration for Friday.
Perfect. That was very easy, and good job, everyone. Moving on to item number 10, old unfinished business. Do we have any old unfinished business? Good answer. We'll move on to number 11, which is public comments for items not on the agenda. If you're here this evening and would like to speak to anything that we have not already discussed, we welcome you to the podium. We'll give you 3 minutes.
Nate here. Does anybody need a Diet Coke or water? They're cold.
Yes, you have water. Just in case.
Thank you.
No, I got my thanks.
Best public comments ever. Sorry to anyone who
Oh, wait,
spoke
we got one.
earlier. Oh, sorry. No, you're welcome. Come. And you're going to show Nate up. I know you are.
Actually, I just wanted to come here to kind of introduce ourselves. We just took over the hall rental and everything over at the Knights of Columbus. We are going to be doing a lot of different things, trying to be involved with the city as much as possible. I know with our other business, we do a lot within like East Point, Roseville area as well. As a matter of fact, next week we're catering the entire State of the City address for City of East Point. So, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Justin. That's actually my partner, William. We're going to be over there. We're doing fish fries currently. This past Sunday, we actually started a Sunday brunch.
Every Sunday?
Every Sunday.
What time?
From 10 to 3 every Sunday.
Okay.
And then we do have plans for a lot of changes kind of coming to the hall to increase our exposure and, try to brighten up the area of the city as well.
Wonderful. Well, welcome. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on from public comment for our city clerk's report. Michelle?
Thank you. The only thing I'm reporting tonight is I was going to give you the percentage of our election from February 27th, the presidential election. We ended up with 26% turnout. Of that, we had 1,334 vote in the precincts. We had 43 vote early at our early voting site, and 1,193 absentee ballots cast, with a total of 26%.
Nice.
How did we do compared to other communities?
I think everyone was kind of running in the same, I think that the early voting is starting to be known. We're going to see probably, an uptick in that. It's new, people aren't used to it, so I think that as time goes on, we'll probably see more people turn out to early vote, but.
And have you heard anything new regarding the maps being redrawn?
I have not heard anything official. I know that, I think there was a meeting the week of the election, so I think that they have a deadline that they have to meet, and I'm sure we'll hear something soon. I looked at the maps. It looks like Clawson may be under one district, but we'll see. I don't think that they're final yet, so.
Okay.
So that's it.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. City Attorney's report, Mr. Newshine.
Madam Mayor, just briefly, I wanted to, as you know, the Ordinance Review Committee met today, had a very productive meeting. We anticipate the first ordinance from the Ordinance Review Committee to be presented to council at the next meeting. I have nothing additional. Thank you.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Newshine? Nope. City Attorney's report, Mr. Baker.
Attorney, all right.
Oh, sorry, City Manager's report.
I don't know if I want that.
I'm doing well to speak at this point.
Madam Mayor, not much, just a reminder, the Bowl-a-thon Scholarship fundraiser is going to be held Friday, March 22nd at 5:30 at Astro Lanes. We'll have one more plug on the 19th for it.
That was it?
That's all I have, ma'am.
Questions for our City Manager, comments?
What's the timing for the master plan?
I'll defer to Nick on that.
We just started the last planning commission, touching on some of the main objectives that are tentatively going to go on that draft. So we're hoping to have the draft master plan in front of the planning commission probably sometime in April or May. And then from there, there's, I believe, a 45 or 60-day public noticing period for once the document's finalized, and then it'll get approved at PC level, then they'll recommend it for the approval by the governing body. So probably June-ish would be a tentative date to be looking for that master plan to be finalized, but there could be something that comes in before that, so definitely this summer.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we're moving on to City Council comments. Councilwoman Binkowski, what do you have for us this evening?
Just at the, as the city attorney said, the ordinance committee is being held just before this meeting at 6 p.m. every other week. So people are free to come and check it out, but otherwise we're going through the ordinances and trying to revise them based on changes to the charter and so forth.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
I got nothing.
Okay, Councilmember Anderson
No comment.
and Councilmember Shepherd.
I guess I do have another question, so sorry. I noticed that there was a sign for Troy for some type of action on the lot that is on the corner of Main and Elmwood. And I'm just concerned that there may be some development that's happening over there that maybe have some potential impact on drainage and stormwater and so forth. So I'm just curious as far as what that is.
Have nothing right now, but we'll definitely be in touch with the city of Troy if any modifications, projects are proposed for that site.
Okay. Okay, that's all.
Okay, great. And then I would just like to thank everyone who came out this evening to speak to us, whether, no matter what you said or what side you seem to be on. If there are sides, we appreciate all of you, and every voice is important. So thank you for that. And I just want to say thanks to everyone who serves. This is not a job for the light of heart, and but it's worth it. So thank you for being a great community. We appreciate you. And I would like to call for a motion to dismiss.
I move we adjourn.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Binkowski?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett?
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd? Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Meeting adjourned. Sorry.